Oh, yes. Oh, yes. 'Tis a Dan day on the show on this lovely Friday morning. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, everyone. I'm Dan Besbris. You can find me on social at Dan Besbris. You can follow the network at Old Man Squad. It'll follow you back. Please do like, rate, and subscribe as we get settled in for today. We had a Dan day last Thursday. That was with Dan Titus. We got a Dan day today with the thunderous one. Oh, thunderous one. Thunder Dan Palyo at Thunder Dan DFS on social media. Back on the show. Should I call you Mr. Dan or Thunder? Which is the preferred nomenclature?
Dr. Thunder, actually.
Dr. Thunder.
Just call me anything but late to dinner. That's what.
Hey-oh.
Hey,
I love it.
Listen,
How you doing, man?
if you're gonna be the Old Man Sports Network, you're gonna have to deal with some like dad jokes.
I want all of them.
No, it's good to be back, man. I feel like it's been too long, but I just got a chance to talk to Dan Titus and just the other night too. I see we were on our first episode of Between Two Dans, which was fun. I didn't expect to talk about our favorite cereals and whether we liked Adam Sandler better than Ben Stiller, but it was fun. We had a good time with it. So
so we're gonna get into Dan's favorites and least faves on the Yahoo board in just a second. I had to peel out. I watched the first 5-10 minutes of that show, and it looked like you guys are having a blast. But I had to take my I had to pick up one of my. I don't know. You and I were talking off air about the fact that we're always driving a kid to or from something right now.
literally.
What was so Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, and Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn, yeah.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn was the immediate cut for me on that one. Like,
yeah, but then Kingy, I don't know, maybe because he's Australian and it's a little bit. I'm sure he hasn't. Well, first of all, he was trying to say he liked Vince Vaughn in Step Brothers, and neither Dan nor I had the guts to tell him that Vince Vaughn is not in Step Brothers. He was thinking of Will Ferrell.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you could put Will Ferrell on that list. That would make it a more competitive matchup.
Yeah. But me and both Dans, we both cut Vince Vaughn, but we had flipped. I'm an Adam Sandler guy, so I was starting Sandler, and he had Stiller in there with Sandler on the bench. So we're basically the same, except we had those two flipped. Then Kingy kind of came out of left field or out of the outback and was telling us that Vince Vaughn was, and I like Vince Vaughn, but like Vince Vaughn is just always the same character, right? Like he's very much.
Remember when he tried to be that character in a season of True Detective? That didn't go so great for her.
No, I don't. I mean, again, he had like a really awesome run there with like probably 5 or 6 years where Vince Vaughn was just crushing everything. But like, I mean, Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler have been 30 years, right, in the business.
Yep.
Produce, direct, all the different roles, serious stuff, funny stuff. Like those guys are just
it's just
and of course they're making a Happy Gilmore too. I don't know if you
saw that. Are they really?
Yeah, it's official.
Oh, I'm very concerned about my immediate reaction is like deep concern. I love that. The grandma, may she rest in peace, Frances Bay, is my cousin actually.
No way.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
She passed away like a decade ago.
That's so cool.
Sadly, a long, slow decline after being. This is going to be a morbid start to the show, but she got hit by a car in a crosswalk at the Glendale Galleria in Southern California here, and then she was never the same after that. But yeah, Frances Bay, it was amazing. She'd have a family reunion party every year, and she had when I was in. I mean, crap, you and I are close to the same age. So Happy Gilmore came out middle school, I think, right? So she knew that I was a massive fan. And me and all my friends, we had just picked up golf when we were 13. So it was like right in that same wheelhouse. And she had Adam Sandler sign a bunch of cocktail napkins for me and my friends.
Wow.
She brought them to the family reunion dinner, and I was able to take them to all my buddies. So I have an Adam Sandler signed cocktail napkin floating around somewhere.
That's a cool story.
My mom's place. Almost as fun as the fact that they filmed Last Action Hero across the street from my elementary school. This is going way back now.
That's even further back. Yeah.
It's somehow I think I was in 6th grade, maybe at that 4th, 5th, something like that.
Maybe earlier. Yeah. That's a really old movie.
Word got out that it was happening. And so like this flood of the older kids all ran to the park right where they were filming it. And then Arnold was signing little paper on. So I have a scratch paper with an Arnold signature. I also have a diploma with an Arnold signature for governor and all that. But those are my two weird celebrity signatures. But let's talk about fantasy basketball because people are going to get mad. You know what
People
happens?
are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, if you don't get into it real quick, they get mad. So we'll give the people what they want. You're basically running the show today, which is what I've been telling my guests who are talking to me about the players they do or don't like. Because I don't know. I prefer not to know where my guests are going because I can react in real time. So Thunder Dan, where do you want to start on this lovely Friday morning? Who's a player you like or don't like based on where they're kicking right now?
Is it okay if we start like in the first round with like that kind of stuff though? Those
You don't even
guys.
have to ask. You're
Yeah,
steering
okay.
it, man. If you want to crash it, you crash it. If you want to take us to the highway, take it to the highway. Let's go.
Here's the thing about the first round that is interesting to me is the first. It feels like the first 4 picks are pretty locked in. I know we were
Does
talking the other night that you might be a Jokic over Wemby guy at 1, from what Adam was saying.
I
But
am.
even if you flip flop those guys, it just feels like Luca is an easy 3 and SGA is an easy 4, and then after that, it's very much up 5 through 10, 5 through 12, even is very much up in the air, right?
It's way up in the air. No one. So it seems like it's starting. I don't want to say to crystallize because as soon as I say that, then Yahoo's going to adjust their board and everything's going to flip again. But it
Yeah.
does seem like it's starting to seem like Anthony Davis and Giannis are 5 and 6 in some
Yeah.
order, and then I'm going to pull the Yahoo board up on the screen for those that
No,
are
I love it.
watching.
Yeah.
And Halliburton, they've got Halliburton pre-ranked 6. He is seeming like he's this guy going 7th in most of the stuff that I've been looking at or doing. But you're right. Like, even if you don't include those guys, or even if you do, I forget which direction I was going with this. There's like
Yeah.
9 to 12 guys after Shea
Yeah.
that are you mean you could get it exactly right, you get it completely wrong. I don't know that there's a perfect answer there.
Yeah. I mean, I of those, it's really tough because if you're not if you're punting, you can just go Giannis and punt. But outside of that, I really like Halliburton a lot again. Anthony Edwards is interesting there because I was really big on him last year and high on him, but now it almost feels like is he a little bit is he a little high at 10? Like, is that a little early on him with his kind of, I don't know, lack of dominance in any particular category?
Yeah.
He could take another leap this year in scoring, but Trey Young to me is fascinating because we were talking about this the other night on the show. Could he just go nuts without Dejounte this year and put up like 28 and like 12 assists or something? So he's a really compelling pick there. I personally, if you want to go down the list a little further, if I'm picking towards the end of the first round, I might even like reach a little bit. And I think Chet Holmgren is such a compelling pick. If you're
Interesting.
picking, yeah, I mean, we kind of know like most of these guys are known quantities, like Sabonis, Kyrie, even Steph and KD. Like you kind of know what you're getting, and they're obviously very safe picks. But if you want to go after a guy who still hasn't hit their ceiling yet and could be a top 5 to 10 fantasy player, I mean, to me, Chet could be really awesome this year.
Interesting. So I've been leaning a little bit the other direction, and this is going to be a fun
Okay.
discussion because of that. So my fear with Chet is fear is probably not the right word. It's more of like I'm having trouble seeing the path forward with Isaiah Hartenstein in town. Does that concern you in any way?
Well, if you give up a board or two, if you're saying Hartenstein's going to eat up some rebounds, that's fine. But I do think having him play more power forward and less center is going to be good for him in the long run in terms of, in terms of matchups and in terms of allowing him to be more of a roaming defender, come over and make some help side blocks. In general, I just think that's where he's really should be playing more at the 4, and that he at times was playing a little bit out of position at center last year, and you could see him physically kind of be dominated by some of the bigger, thicker centers in the league. So I don't know, man. He's just so smooth. He's so good. I think his efficiency and the blocks and everything. there's a floor there. There's obviously a really nice floor there, but I think there's obviously a ceiling too that I don't think he's hit yet. So
I like that there's some ever so slight disagreement. I actually fully agree with you on the floor with Chet. That's the nice thing about him is that, there's really nothing that he's bad at. So that creates a nice, high, safe bottom. That's a weird way for me to phrase it, but I'm going to go with it. But I'm also like, do you see him getting more usage this year with Josh Giddey gone? Is that part of it as well?
I mean, Giddy wasn't even like a huge usage guy, I guess, and Caruso won't be either. But I think it's just a natural progression with him too, in terms of him being more comfortable in the league, being more comfortable being a starter, and that team probably just gelling more too. I think they're going to be really good. Number one, obviously, with bringing Caruso and bringing in gosh, I forgot his name already. This at center,
Oh, big
Hartness,
Isaiah. Big
Big
Isaiah.
Isaiah. I mean, those are really great additions, but neither guy are score first guys. I still think it's going to be the offense is going to run through SGA, through I mean, Chet probably number two, and maybe Jalen Williams three. That's hard. I guess you could debate that who the second option is, but yeah, I mean, again, I just like him a lot. I like his skill set and combination especially for 9 cat. He just doesn't have a weakness really. And yeah, I mean, we feel free to disagree. I know, it's one of
No, that's
those
what's fun.
spots. Yeah, it's fun. That's what the best part about it is. We can have different opinions, but yeah, he's a guy. Again, if you're looking at guys who you could see grow, I just think um, in that range, we kind of a lot of guys are known quantities, and I feel like he still might be somewhat of an unknown quantity with what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point on the known quantities part, and some of them are known quantities that really have almost no business being in that range. So, like, you're debating between, I'm going to pull up the board here again, like who's a good example of somebody that probably shouldn't be going there? Kyrie Irving is 13. I get it. I know his per game is going to be way better than that, but
Yeah,
by totals, he has almost no chance of getting to that mark. Like, dude is going to miss 20 games every year. That's just where
yeah.
it is with him now.
Hmm.
So, you sit on a guy like a Chet who played all 82 last season. Everybody was like, no, his body won't make it. Well, his body made it. He was one of the most durable players in the entire NBA. And I know, guys are durable until they're not, and sort of the flip flop of that. But there is the appeal of some upside, and as folks can see on their screen, his very early ADP numbers are starting to come in here on Yahoo. They just loaded those in, I think, today or yesterday, and Holmgren is going earlier than his pre-rank. His pre-rank 17, his ADP is 15.8.
Yeah.
It's always kind of see the guys that are that because the only people doing drafts this early are lunatics. And so this is the what's a lunatic going to do? Are they going to ignore the pre-rank? Are they going to go with it? Dan, I want to go back. By the way, we're talking to Dan Palyo at Thunder Dan DFS. I want to go back to Trae Young, who you mentioned as you were kind of going through some of those first rounders. He's going in the first round this year, and it makes sense with no Dejounte. The last season he was without Dejounte Murray. He was a first rounder in 9-cat, which is really flooring for Trae Young. But he did also shoot 46%. In
Yeah.
8 category that year, I think he was number 7 or number 8. So it was a mammoth season for him.
Hmm.
Even if he doesn't get back to that marker, it feels like, Dan, he's an interesting player to build on the head-to-head side because
Yeah.
he has that 2, 3, 4 categories where he is extraordinarily good and
Right.
also has 3 or 4 where he's pretty freaking bad for 9-cat. But
Right.
head to head, you want the big up and the big down, and Roto, you want the guys that
Hmm.
are just pretty good at everything. Have you thought much about what you would do if you started a team with Trae Young?
Yeah. We actually talked about this on the between two Dans there night about punt builds, and if you want to punt big man stats and focus on guard stats, I think he is probably the perfect first round guy to go after because you're going to punt field goal percentage, you're going to punt blocks probably, and the fact that he could be a 11 to 12 assist guy. I mean, assists are one of the more rare statistics to come across. If you get a big time assist guy, to build around, or if you can pair him with another, pretty. I wouldn't say pass first because he's obviously a scorer too, but another high assist guy. It's one way to really lock down that category early. So I think he's a perfect guy for a punt build. I personally like to flip it. I usually like to punt and more guard stats and build around bigs. But I know we were talking to Adam King this dinner. He kind of likes to do the opposite a lot of
He
times.
does,
And
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, if you think about the value, I'm sure you can when you start plugging in the numbers and looking at like where Trey Young ranks when you start punting of field goal percentage and turnovers and blocks, it's going to be way up there, especially if it comes anywhere close to even 80-90% of what he did, like you said, in that last year before Dejounte came over.
Talk to me a little bit about the punt guard builds that you like to lean into, the big man builds. Where would you? I mean, obviously, you'd love to start with a top 4 pick, but what's a nice pathway to take on something like that? Who are the guys you'd look for in the first? Who are the guys you'd look for in the second? Because I think, and this happened to me too, but I know a lot of folks when they get into these, punt one side or punt the other side type of builds, they end up kind of drafting their teams backwards. They're like, oh, well, I'm punting big man stats. So I got to make sure I get these key guards early. But sometimes it's actually the opposite, where if you're punting big man stats, you want to get the truly unique bigs
Yeah.
that fit the guard build. So how do you build your more big man heavy team? What's the operation there?
Well, I mean, so if you're thinking a big man team, and one of the first things you punt is free throw percentage, or threes, or both. And so a guy like Giannis in the first round is perfect. A guy like LeBron James, although he had a great 3-point shooting season last year, his free throw percentage is always, has fluctuated over the years, and the volume, obviously, of the free throws hurts you at 70. I don't know what he shot last year, 75% or 72, or
Yeah, a
it's never
little better, but not as brutal, but still a negative.
it's
Yeah.
never great. Yeah. So I always like looking at Giannis early. Um as far as big men go, I mean the big men who pass, this is one thing I don't think it's smart to punt assists. You can build big men teams by getting big men who pass. Like if you grab a Sabonis or Şengün, or obviously Jokic or any of these other centers who are elite passers, even an Embiid, right? Embiid's a 5 to 6 assist guy. I think you don't want to punt assists out the gate, but punting threes, punting free throw percentage, um, and then building around efficiency. You want field goal percentage, and that's where you're talking about trying to find the right guards. It's not always early. I feel like it's more in the mid rounds that you're looking, but you're trying to find guards like Derek White or DeMar DeRozan, or guys who are going to be close to 50% from the floor, who also can contribute in those other like big man categories, rebounds, especially blocks and steals. I mean, that to me, that's why Derek White is such a phenomenal fantasy player and has served me well the last couple of years. Is just the guy, doesn't need to score more than 13 or 14 points because he literally does everything else and has solid percentages while doing it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a guard early. If you want to I mean, Shea and Kyrie are obviously pretty good targets, but if you take them early, then you're probably missing out on one of these, elite um, big men, or a guy like Giannis or LeBron. So, yeah, it's kind of more towards the mid rounds, I think, where you're looking at some of those guards that would be overlooked if people are just looking at their scoring or their 3 pointers. Or their assists, but they're really efficient in the way that they shoot or rebound or whatever else.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's put us back in the car. We're going to drive wherever you'd like to go next. We've talked about Trey. We've talked about punt guard stuff. We've talked about. Oh, you know what? I actually did have one more follow up question. I'm gonna
Yeah.
ruin our
Please.
entire show today and not let you get to any of the players you want to talk about.
No, man, it's all good.
If you're punting, if you're leaning big man stats and you don't get Giannis in the middle of the first round, is getting someone like Domantas Sabonis, is that a half decent backup option as kind of a starting type?
Yeah. Absolutely. Now you're not getting the blocks, obviously, with Sabo, but you can get the blocks later. You're still going to get the elite field goal percentage, and you're going to get those assists that we talked about from him that are as good as having a starting point guard,
Hmm.
right? I mean, Sabonis is what, seven assists or whatever
Yeah.
per game, and so I mean he fits that build really well. There's even guys like we talked about Zion the other night. I know Zion's not a real sexy pick, but like if you're punting free throw percentage, you're getting 26 and 5 from a guy with that it's like almost 60% shooting. Again, you're not getting the blocks because he's not a big block shot guy like Sabo, but you're getting points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage. You're getting 4 out of the 5 that you're targeting anyways. And so like even like a guy like Zion is a pretty decent
Hmm.
target if you miss out on some of the other early round big guys.
Yeah, if you can get Giannis, LeBron, De'Aaron Fox as like the top 3, it feels like that locks it up.
Oh yeah.
You can't guarantee that. So you got to have ways that you can kind of zig when they expect you to zag, and other pathways forward and so forth. Okay, I want to make sure we get to at least 1 or 2 more of the players you actually intended to talk about on today's show
Yeah.
before I derailed us a few times. Where do you want to go next?
I actually wanted to ask you a question about a guy
All right.
because I'm really curious. I feel like his ADP here is really interesting, and it could be wildly low or high for what he could his range of outcomes. And is Dejounte Murray. So he's at what 24.
He is at 24.
I feel like I mean, think about the range of outcomes here. If he comes in and kind of takes over as the alpha on that team, that feels low. If he comes in and ends up having to kind of defer because you have Brandon Ingram here, you have Zion, you have CJ, you have all these other guys who are, demand shots and also can create. Then does he just kind of, is it a lateral move or even a step back in a way? And so is he almost too high if he's just going to come in and be one of the guys? What do you think about how he's going to fit into this New Orleans team?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I will say the uncertainty alone scares me off of Dejounte Murray. When I draft someone in late second, early third range, I want somebody that I know almost exactly what I'm getting out of them. Okay, because my general philosophy on early round picks is don't ruin your team. Just like
Mhm.
avoid tanking your club, because you can very much lose a league in the second round.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
very hard
yeah.
to win a league in the second round. Not that I think DeJounte is going to roll in there and be like a 85 range guy. I don't think that type of drop off is coming. But if the bottom for him is now 55 or 60, that's too low. I don't want to draft a
Yeah.
guy in the second round who
Yeah.
who could be a 6th rounder. I want my second round where I can look and say, look, if a worst case scenario, this guy's like a 4th rounder, and a best case, maybe early second, whatever. Does he crawl into the first? There aren't going to be that many guys that do that anyway. So I'm pretty much all out on Murray, unless the Yahoo board reshuffle, which I know is coming at some point soon. Unless that bumps him down like a round and a half and he starts going closer to 40, then I'm back.
Yeah.
Then I'm back in.
See, I don't think he will. I think the name brand recognition alone, and they're just people who just love this guy because he is such a good fantasy producer, regardless of the context around him. I feel like that alone, even if he does drop a few points, he's not going to drop that far.
Yeah. Do
And
you think this is too early for him also, or would you take
yeah, I
really more?
do. Like, what you're playing with a lot of what ifs. What if they trade Brandon Ingram? What if this happens? People saying, "Well, Ingram never stays healthy. Zion never stays healthy." Again, you're talking in all these hypotheticals. If just assume that they're all healthy, I feel like it's a very lateral move for him, if not even a slight drop off. And again, for real life basketball, the Pelicans might be a really nice team if those guys stay
Yeah.
together for real in real life. But for fantasy, I feel like it kind of dings all of them to some extent.
I am
Um,
100% in agreement with you on that one. I'm largely avoiding Pelicans this year. We still don't even really know who their center is. Is it Daniel
right,
Tice? Like,
right. They're just going to play Zion in center and play small
yeah.
ball and run Dyson Daniels out there or something. Like we don't know.
Well, he's in
We don't know.
Atlanta now. Remember, Dyson Daniels went
Oh
back
my
in the
gosh,
Dejounte Murray trade.
that's right.
So
That's right.
they like Trey Murphy, Herb
Right. Yeah.
Jones are still there. They
All
got
the
a
wings.
lot of wings. I'm very much with you on being afraid of Pelicans stuff. Like Brandon Ingram getting traded is the way that maybe some of this stuff gets unlocked for these guys,
Right.
but nah. The only Pel right now to me, and with Zion, if you're punting free throws, he's a totally fine grab. McCollum is going at like 75 to 90 range. That's
Yeah, he's safe down
probably
there.
fine. Yeah, it's safe.
Yeah.
It's not exciting, but
Right.
probably be okay. Yeah, so that one I'm with you as that one being a down. Let's do one more player before you got to go. I know you got a very busy day, and I want to make sure we get in some of your stuff.
That's all right.
Actually, if you got do you have a lightning round list, or do you want to focus on one more guy? Leave it up to you.
Oh man, I don't know. There's a lot of guys here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to scroll through here, and I didn't have a whole bunch of them picked out ahead of time, but we can roll through a couple real quick.
Let's do one more good one more juicy one, and then we'll wrap it up.
Ooh, all right, one more juicy one. So,
by the way, before we get to that, I like to do
Yeah.
this before the very last moment. Thunder Dan, what you working on right now? Let me get some promo in there.
Well, I'm still covering baseball on a somewhat daily basis in terms of bets and VFS, but a lot of NFL content preparing for draft season for NFL, and then obviously, with basketball right around the corner, kind of coming up with a plan for how we're going to cover basketball at RotoBaller this year. Obviously, for me, I kind of have to compartmentalize a little bit, and like football has to have started and everything be going like the everything's running fluently and flowing. And then once that starts, I can kind of like my brain say, all right, football's good, everything's set up, my teams are all functioning, and everyone's hitting their deadlines and whatnot. And then then it'll be start working on rankings and all the good basketball stuff. So
you are just trying to survive through October, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and as much as I love baseball, my team, the Pirates, are not going to be in the postseason. I still pay attention and I watch baseball and I follow it into the postseason. It's obviously exciting, especially for Dodgers fans out in Southern California, right?
Getting healthy, slowly but surely. Got my Dodgers hat on. Max Muncy's return has been helpful.
I'm all set for Dodgers Phillies NLCS. So assuming that actually plays out, that'll be a lot of fun.
The Dodgers are going to wet themselves in the playoffs like they always do until they do something else over the last few years. I can't get super excited yet. Plus, like, okay, at least they've Flaherty's healthy and they traded for him. But Yamamoto's
pitching is
way back, and Glasnow's on the DL, which. It's a thing, man. Dodgers are back to needing Clayton Kershaw to be their number 2 starter right now, which I love. I mean, he's like the one player left on the team that connects me to sort of my childhood a little bit.
There you go.
Because dude is old.
It's old.
It's an old man squad here and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I'll say it frankly, and I say it every time. I don't know how you do all the different sports. It's overwhelming, even just doing one super in depth. So, prayers up to you, Thunder Dan.
We'll manage. I mean, it's one of those things where, you just have to push through. And then once, like I said, football is starting and we're a month into football and basketball. So that's exciting because, when the World Series is going on, like I'm mostly a fan in the postseason. There's not nearly as much like content going on a daily basis. And around here, I don't live far from Baltimore too. So we have the Orioles, which people are pretty excited about the Orioles and their postseason chances. And I'm not a Yankees guy, but there's plenty of New York fans around this market as well. So yeah, it should be fun. I mean, baseball's still one of my favorite sports, and
same.
Draws me back to my childhood. But back to basketball.
Yes, one more. Give me one more juicy one.
I got this is tough because I had two. All right, so I'm looking down towards the like the 40s and 50s now, and
I mean you could do a double dip if you want. You want to do two?
There's two guys who seem like perhaps a little low. So 45 for Kawhi is like,
oh yeah,
what the heck? Obviously, it's a bet on his health because with Paul George gone now, I mean, statistically, you would think he and Harden are gonna go nuts. But how many games is he gonna play, right? So he's like a second or third round guy being drafted at 45. I'm probably not going to draft him, but there's going to be a number of times that he's sitting there, and I'm going to want to click on him, and I'm probably not. What about you? You think
Do
I
it.
should?
I'll egg you on. I'll egg you on this one. I don't think that. I mean, I would be floored if he stays at 45. Once all the numbers settle, because like the simple fact is per game. My hot take on the show this year so far is that Kawhi Leonard is the number 4 player this year per game in basketball. I think he's
I know he's top 10. Yeah, I would say top 10 for sure.
I think he's behind Wemby, Jokic in whatever order. Embiid will be in the top 3 per game for as long as he's healthy. And then I think it's Kawhi is my next guy. But does he play 55 or more ball games this year? The nice thing is at that clip, he really only needs to play about 50 games to hit this mark by totals. Now, obviously, that's a huge pain in the neck on the head-to-head side if a guy's just missing time all the time. In a games cap format, it's a lot easier to stomach. But at this price, to me, it's one of the no-brainers of the whole board. Like as long as we don't get news in early October that he's going to miss like all the way through until Christmas or something, then I'm into it. And it seemed like he was just about ready to play in the Olympics, and then they were like, maybe we don't want to push this.
Yeah, right.
I
think on the head-to-head side, the biggest concern obviously would be is that the Clippers are not a playoff team this year if they take a step back, and if they're down the stretch they're losing, that the first thing they'll do is shut him down.
Right. I think they'll be in the mix though, at least for a play-in spot at the very worst. Don't you think?
Well, I mean, they're right there. They should be.
All right, who's the other one? I know you had a double dip here.
So here's the other guy, and we did talk about him a little bit on Between Two Dan's Day or Night. If you're looking, again, at a guy who we just don't have a ceiling for yet, it's Jaylen Duren at 50. Jaylen Duren.
There we go. I got him up on the screen.
So, I mean, when you look at per minute, like he didn't even play, I think he was at 28 or 29 minutes per game last year, somewhere around there. And statistically, like he was phenomenal, right? He was almost 11 and a half rebounds per game. He even was a decent passer, pushing up towards 3 assists per game. Not a lot of blocks, which is kind of annoying. But again, if you're targeting some big men who can dominate double-doubles and also be solid in assists, you're looking at a guy who going in the 4th or 5th round, I think has maybe like 3rd round potential if he continues to. And obviously he's got to stay healthy. You know, he wasn't super healthy all the time last year. Where are you on Duren?
So I like to try to do one hot take per season. My hot take this year is that Kawhi Leonard is the number 4 player per game in fantasy. My hot take last year was that Jaylen Duren was going to lead the league in rebounding, and I wasn't that far off. I think he was like 4th.
Yeah, right.
5th?
And that's why I think he only played 9 minutes a night.
Right. He is a truly special rebounder. The way that, and he was, I forget what his age is right now. I think he's like 20 or 21 years old. He's still extraordinarily young. There aren't that many guys in the NBA who, when they're like in a crowd under the basket and they jump, everyone around them just falls back like bowling pins. And Duren is one of those guys. It's really funny to watch, actually. And it's hard to watch Pistons games, I know. And I didn't watch a ton of them, but I watched some to try to get a feel for like, why is Asar Thompson not playing anymore? Little things like that you were trying to sort out last year with the Monty Williams thing. But the one thing that always jumped out was Jaylen Duren is so freaking explosive. It's crazy. But you brought up the downside with him, which is, for whatever reason, he doesn't get many defensive stats. And so this whole, like, what's the balancing act there? One thing I do like about him, which I think may be a little bit more roto-y than head-to-head, he's a good foul shooter from the center.
Right.
He was at 79% last year. You just assume when you're like, oh, giant rebounder, big field goal percent, he must be a free throw negative. He's not. So you're right. What is the ceiling for this dude? Is there a chance he plays 2-3 more minutes per game? Is there a chance his blocks go from 0.8 to like 1.1, 1.2 if there's a bad year thing? He could jump fast in that regard. And another nice thing, we talked about floors. pretty safe floor when you're a guy who grabs a dozen rebounds a game and is good at percentages. I guess just to play devil's advocate one time before we wrap things up, my fear with him is the steals and blocks don't come back. And he has been dealing, and I get it, Detroit's been tanking for half a decade now.
Yeah.
He didn't play in that many games, and he's always resting with bilateral ankle soreness, and it's hard to tell if that's a real thing or not a real thing, and that would
Yeah.
be the one thing that would kind of scare me away a little bit. Do we know that his incredibly explosive body can handle the rigors of a full NBA season? And so I've kind of gone back and forth on him. I've been, I think, lucky that I was looking at one of my mock drafts from yesterday, like, I ended up getting Evan Mobley in the late fourth round. And
Oh
so
man.
it was like, yeah, I'll go that direction because I didn't have as much to worry about. I got Cade late fourth round, and I went Jimmy Butler early fifth round in a different draft where I was like, look, these are guys that I think they could leap farther forward. So I haven't been presented with this, I need a center, Duren's there situation, but I know it's coming.
Yeah.
I don't know. I ended up monologuing there a little bit. And he's
That's
going,
okay.
by the way, folks can see it on YouTube again. His ADP early on here is 54.6. So he's actually going a tiny bit later than his early pre-rank. I love that. That's fantastic. If he goes a half round to a round later, that's perfect.
That's value.
I'd rather
Yeah.
take it anyway.
Right. I got to ask you one. I mean, if we're going to do, we did this on the show the other night. We got to get at least like a value guy for people. So is there someone that let me flip it around on you. And
I mean, you had Kawhi in there, was a nice value, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm talking about like late rounds. So like after 120, who's a guy you think is like badly mispriced and is like a super value in like obviously the 10th or 11th or
After
12th round?
120. So you've wiped out a bunch of my guys that are between 110 and 120.
Okay, no, that's fine. 110.
No,
I
it's
mean,
okay. That's fair. Because like first 10 rounds, those are technically, starter level guys. The 10th round to me is loaded with Ivica Zubats is going to have a great year. I like OG Anunoby, Mike Conley. I actually think Daniel Gafford, even if he ends up as the backup, there's a bunch of guys in that 10th round that I like a lot. If you want to go deeper down the board, Colin Sexton at 141 is kind of a relatively safe, I think, value play there. I like Okongwu at 164. Even if Capella doesn't get moved, he's finally going late enough where that makes sense for me. Who are one or two names that jump out to you in the later rounds?
Yeah, the other night I was talking about Bajemski a little bit from Golden State, being a guy who I think is going to be sneaky good. But I was curious how you felt about a couple of these guys. We got, I don't know how far down we are here, but the rookie from Portland, Donovan Clean. If you think he's going to play enough minutes to be statistically relevant, because he blocked 4 shots a game in summer league, and he actually passed pretty well. I know he's not going to score a lot, but could he be like a Andre Drummond type who's just like going to be a really elite permanent rebounder and shot blocker who could be relevant with even 20, 25 minutes a game?
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, Portland's going to have DeAndre Ayton starting to begin the year, and he'll miss a bunch of time because they're going to be tanking for flag. They also have Robert Williams due to come back at some point. I think Reith is still there, if I'm not mistaken.
Or he's like either that or he's on like G League or whatever. I forget.
So there's just to me, there's kind of too many bodies right now. That and I don't like squatting on players, and that to me is what this one sort of comes down to. Like, can you wait until DeAndre Ayton the plug is being pulled on his season? Can you wait to make sure they're not going to even bother to play Time Lord very much this year? And me, I can't wait. I want to get off to a quick start. In head-to-head in particular, I want to get off to a fast start, because if you're clawing to try to get into the playoffs or you're clawing to try to get to a top couple seed, getting off to a slow start makes that really, really difficult, especially as we condense the season to try to wipe out silly season. Now suddenly the regular season's only 17, 18 weeks long.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't like waiting. And I'm fine. I know a lot of people do. I get it. There's a certain fun in like having the guy who breaks out in February. but I'd rather just wait for somebody else to drop them and pick them up in January. I'll wait 4 weeks instead of 16. And that's my move there. But I do think he's a guy that has a nice end of season run in him for whatever that's worth. Silly season winner.
Yeah, Portland was a gold mine for silly season this year and probably will be again next year, like you said.
Yeah,
So,
Delano Banton was amazing this season.
Right. I mean, a whole bunch of guys over there. But yeah, I figured I'd ask you because maybe I was looking at Fantrax ADP, but he was like up there. Like people were taking him, and maybe it's just people anticipating that they're going to move one of the centers or that he's going to play earlier than later. I don't know, but
yeah, it'll probably be a little bit later.
His profile definitely just kind of, as I mentioned, I love these big guys who can also pass and do a little bit of everything. His profile certainly interests me.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there. I think let's go ahead and put a pin in it, man. You gave me more time than I could have ever asked for.
That's all good.
That's why you are the thunderous one. He is Dan Palyo at Thunder Dan DFS. By the way, this is why I like to do promo in the middle of the show, because then everybody's got to come back for that sweet, sweet nuggets at the end of it. He is, by the way, in case you guys were wondering, NBA, MLB, NFL, DFS with RotoBaller. He is, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, you are a former FSWA Basketball Writer of the Year. You're a maniac. You're also a dad. You're also an instructor. And and on top of all of that, you are awake to me, which feels like the hardest part of all.
Coffee, brother.
I mean, oh yeah, that's fair. He is caffeinated, and that is keeping his body upright. Dan, thank you so much, dude. It's always so nice to talk to you. And I'm really excited that we're going to be doing many shows together as the two pieces of bread around the Adam King burger.
The Adam King sandwich, right?
Yep. We're the buns, man. The Dan's buns.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Next time we get on there, I'm sure it'll be, and this whole season will be a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on, and look forward to the next time we're closer to hoop season as we get, closer and closer. It gets exciting. So we'll talk to you soon.
And that was Thunder Dan Palyo. Love that dude. And we are going to be seeing a lot of Thunder Dan sometimes on this show, but also he mentioned it a few times, Between Two Dans. That's a new show here on the Old Man Squad Network. Adam King hosting. And there's going to be Dans on it. Me, Dan Palyo, Dan Titus. As Adam talked about, anybody else will be on it as well, but they're going to go by Dan when they're on the show. So just, goofy little gig bit, I think, that everyone can enjoy, and we'll laugh it up and have a good old time. Today, I do plan on having one more show this afternoon. The Yahoo board continues to remain the same, as those of you that are watching can see. The pre-ranks haven't shifted yet. Not yet. I don't think it maybe it happens in the next couple of hours between shows, but provided it stays the same, we will finally do our sleepers episode on the first board today. So we'll start at basically pick 100. I'll talk about the guys I like after 100, skipping over everyone else. It's like 20-ish guys, I think, after 100 that are on my I would consider you or I actually want to target you board. And some of them are, a little more league specific, like a Jonathan Isaac at 235. You're obviously not drafting him in any head-to-head format. But on the games cap side, that would be a really interesting player to take with your last round pick. So there's like little things like that are going to change how I feel about these guys. But honestly, I just kept waiting because I was like, I don't want to do the sleepers episode if they're about to bump, 10 of my 20 targets up 40 slots, but hasn't happened yet. So that'll be the show later on today. The Dan Besbris late round must grab kind of thing, whatever you want to call it. Don't leave your draft without him, late flyer types. We'll come up with some search engine optimized naming on that, but you guys know what I mean. These are the guys you take in the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th round. These are the guys that have either some upside or really high floor. They serve a purpose. We'll get into that on our show later today. And then we roll into the weekend. Tomorrow and Sunday, we will likely have team previews. We still have 5 to go. Plenty of time to get them done. we begin the Atlantic Division over the weekend. So we'll hit on those two, I should say, of those 5 clubs over the weekend. And then Monday of next week, we'll start back in on more draft prep stuff. We've got guests lined up basically the whole week through. Alex Barutha on Monday, Alex Ricklean on Tuesday. Yes, we're rolling our Alexies back-to-back. Matt Lawson, first time on the show in a while. I'll have Matt on Wednesday, Dynasty Maven. Raphael Johnson on Thursday. I think Friday might be a visit from Rhett Bauer. That's going to come down to whether or not I have childcare. But Rhett has a really interesting topic for next week that, screw it, I'll tease it right now. Rhett came up with a way to draft Joel Embiid and also create a buffer in your team against Embiid getting hurt. So it's how to win with Joel Embiid if you're also without Joel Embiid. That should be a really fun show whenever Rhett and I can get that thing scheduled. He's got double the number of children that I have, and yet somehow I'm the problem with trying to get it scheduled. In any event, at Thunder Dan DFS, that's you can follow Thunder Dan Palyo on the social medias. I am at Dan Besbris. Follow me there. At Old Man Squad is once again the network Twitter handle. Please do give that a follow. And one more time on the way out, like the video if you're watching. Please rate and subscribe. Subscribe everywhere. Rate on Apple, on Spotify, etc. This is how we continue to slowly bounce our way up the boards. And more people are popping in like, Dan, I just figured out where you were. Well, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you to all of our guests from this week. This was a bodacious week for so many reasons. This week, we talked to Adam King, Noah Rubin, Jacob Dunn, Curran Telwar, and now Dan Palyo. Again, we'll have likely 5 more guests next week. We've had, I think, 10 guests over the last 2 weeks, 20 some odd shows. We're cooking, man. We're cooking. Season is 60 days away now. We're very much in countdown mode. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. I'm Dan. I'll see you guys later on today with the Sleeper Show. Thanks to other Dan and this Dan and anybody named Dan. We're all the best. See you later.